I'm going to give you an overview of our entire graduate program before Dr. Grossman focuses her presentation on the internship. So for our overall overview, we have Master of Science degrees, and we have both thesis and non-thesis. If you are going into the Dietetic internship program, you will be conducting a thesis in conjunction with your Master of Science degree. Now, we do have an online master's degree, and this is becoming quite popular. And again, I'll leave the discussion of our dietetic internship to Dr. Graceman. Our PhD graduate program is very intensive research, and I'm going to highlight some of our research areas, and then you'll be hearing actually from a number of our faculty. So it's really important for you to think about what type of research that you would like to be engaged in as a graduate student. We have a lot of special programs and very special certifications that you can take advantage of getting that training. And I will just skip over this since Dr. Grossman will cover this. I do want to mention that our department and graduate program is the only dietetic internship that combines the PhD, the doctoral program, with the dietetic internship. This is extremely important because there are many, many jobs for PhD RDs. So even if you aren't thinking about the doctoral route, give that another look, because there are a lot of job opportunities again, and an opportunity here in our graduate program to get that combined PhD RD. So the research areas in our department can be categorized as clinical nutrition, community nutrition, and community nutrition. What we really focus on is nutrition education. We have faculty that are engaged in extension programs throughout the state of Georgia. And our extension faculty have research appointments. So they're developing evidence-based nutrition education programs. We have FNAP, which is Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program. One of our extension faculty with a research appointment directs that. And then our SNAP-Ed program. SNAP is an acronym that used to be referred to as food stamps, but we have a highly funded, government-funded educational program. And the director of that program, Dr. Lee, does direct doctoral and master's degree students. We have a number of faculty that are engaged in basic science nutrition, and I'm going to give you some highlights of their work, and then you'll have several that are actually personally going to share that. And then we have a faculty member. She actually has a culinary arts degree, and she has a PhD in food science, and she directs our culinary science and nutrition major, and she currently has 3 PhD students. So in the area of clinical nutrition, you've come to the right place, because not only do we have faculty with a great deal of expertise in clinical nutrition, but we have the infrastructure, we have the sophisticated equipment that the faculty can use and you can be trained to use, like this DEXA that assesses bone density. A major research area is our sports nutrition. This is Dr. Jamie Cooper, and her program is focused on human studies. You can see one of her doctoral students here, one of the participants who's having biomarkers assessed, looking at the interaction of diet and exercise on health. And Dr. Cooper also teaches several graduate courses in nutrition and exercise. One of our newest faculty, and he will be meeting with you today, Dr. Joe Kindler, he just joined us in August, and he's the new faculty investigator that is conducting research on bone health. And as I mentioned, we have very sophisticated instrumentation. And in fact, he's in the process now of purchasing a very much a state-of-the-art piece of equipment to assess not only bone density, but body composition. Also, nutrition and pharmacy. Dr. Lillian Sadler is a pharmacist, and she has a Ph.D. in human nutrition. So she directs graduate students who are looking at a combination or interaction between nutrients and drugs. And she also teaches a 8,000 level, which is a graduate only course, evaluating the interaction of nutrients and drugs. And I mentioned community nutrition. You will have an awesome opportunity to work with some faculty who are engaged in developing nutrition education programs, including programs for young children. One of those faculty is Dr. Kari Cartwright. Dr. Cartwright is nationally recognized for her award-winning research in educational programs for early child care centers, education for the instructors in those centers, and then of course the young children. So she has a very dynamic program and a large number of graduate students working under her direction. Then Dr. Lee, I mentioned the SNAP-Ed program, the Supplemental Nutrition Education Program. In addition to that, Dr. Lee is very interested in food insecurity. There are lots of different regions in the state of Georgia, for example, where it's very difficult to access foods. And certainly a major concern are our aged population, which may have limited transportation. So she is very focused on that in terms of trying to secure ways to reduce food insecurity. This is Dr. Alex Anderson. Dr. Anderson does research on the impact of maternal body composition during pregnancy. And this pregnant woman is having her body composition assessed in a bod pod. And then this is a photo of our pea pod, where the infant is actually placed inside, the door is closed, and the infant's body composition is assessed. So again, Dr. Anderson is very interested in how the maternal diet and body composition impacts that of her newborn infant and throughout early infancy. Dr. Gerardo is focused on nutrition education with children. And these are some photographs from last summer when she was at Rock Eagle. Those of you from Georgia know that Rock Eagle is a major 4-H center for our 4-H camps. And she has a USDA funded grant in which nutrition education programs are developed, particularly for youth. And her graduate students are engaged in developing those programs and assessing the efficacy. Another new hire, I think you'll see from a lot of our new hires, we have a dynamic group of young new faculty. Dr. Gallo joined us at the same time Dr. Kindler did in August. And Dr. Gallo is very focused on the impact of vitamin D deficiency on health, both the mothers and also young infants. And certainly you can understand, for example, during the pandemic, where a lot of people are indoors the majority of the time, and they have a reduced exposure to sunlight. And through her work, she found that infant vitamin D status is quite impaired, and she's looking at the health consequences of that. So basic science nutrition, what do we really mean? What we really mean is looking at the mechanisms of action within the cells and within subcells, and how our genetic footprint, so to speak, impacts the metabolism of nutrients. So this is Dr. Pastro. You're going to meet Becca Gould, who will join us when the graduate students join us. Becca is a Ph.D. DI student, and she works in Dr. Pastro's lab. The focus of his basic research area is the impact of genetics on chronic disease risk. And he teaches a very intriguing graduate course having to do with the interrelationship with nutrients and genetics, and also inborn errors of metabolism are affected by a genetic predisposition. Dr. Payton is very much involved with metabolism, how the nutrients are metabolized within the cell, and how these nutritional factors might impact disease risk. He also does quite a lot of collaborative work with our sports nutrition team, looking at changes in the composition of the diet and its impact on physiological outcomes, regulation of metabolic activities. And you can see from the size of this obese rat that there's a lot of interest by Dr. Claire de la Serre in examining the factors that increase risk for obesity using this animal model. She's also very interested in the gut microbiome, as illustrated here, and how the changes in the gut microbiome might enhance the likelihood of developing obesity or maintaining a normal body weight. So very, very intriguing interrelationship between diet, the gut microbiome, and our propensity to become obese. And Dr. Greider is very engaged in developing biomarkers for zinc status. I'm sure you may have read or heard on the news that zinc supplements are flying off the shelves now because it's recognized that zinc will enhance your immunity, and particularly if you have a marginal zinc status as determined by biomarkers. And so taking zinc status is recognized, and Dr. Greider has established a lot of the biomarker work in this area. So he also will be involved in just a few minutes in sharing with us some of his work. Dr. Park, she's very excited because she just received a large USDA grant to study the interrelationship between phytochemicals. And these are some fresh fruits and vegetables that are grown in our state of Georgia, and the chemical structures of some of the phytochemicals that have been shown to have health-related effects. She's very focused on looking at the impact of these phytochemicals, not just in rat models, but she also has a pig model, which we understand is very close in its physiology to humans. So, and she is welcoming graduate students into her lab. Dr. Noble, another new faculty, she was hired last year. And she has a fascinating area of research studying the way that our brains interact to influence our appetite, how much food we choose to eat, how often we choose to eat, and then also the interrelationship between exercise and our appetite. So she, again, is welcoming graduate students into her lab. And Dr. Cox, this is a faculty member that I mentioned, has a culinary arts degree and a PhD in food science. And her area is focused on consumer acceptability, meaning how does the food look? How does it taste? How does it smell? And that impact on our food consumption. And she teaches a food sensory lab, that course that is quite popular. In fact, we have a lot of students from the food science department that come over and take that course. And then I mentioned extension in relation to our community nutrition. This is one of our community nutritionists. She is a nutrition extension specialist. Dr. Allie Burke develops nutrition education programs that are disseminated and evaluated across the entire state of Georgia. She has a research appointment also, and she is directing a doctoral student who will be graduating in May. So an excellent opportunity for those of you interested in community nutrition. A second faculty member who is an extension faculty with a research appointment is Dr. Sarah Hennis. She was hired last year also, and she directs our expanded food and nutrition education program. So an excellent opportunity to disseminate nutrition education information and to train the trainer, those practitioners that are out in the field teaching the public. So we have clinical faculty, including Dr. Grossman, who you just met, other clinical faculty who also have a Ph.D. RD, including Dr. Tracy Brigman, who teaches our foods courses, and Dr. Emma Lang, who is the director of our undergraduate dietetics program. Dynamic faculty that are all engaged in scholarly activity and very welcoming to all of you that join our graduate program. I want to share with you just a few examples of our study away programs. One of our study away programs is directed by Dr. Alex Anderson, who is from Ghana himself. He has taken groups of approximately 15 each summer to Ghana for 15 years. And these students have an opportunity to get out in the community, and they have a very life-changing opportunity to go into the hospitals and work with very malnourished infants. They work with the doctors and the nurses, and they can watch as these infants and young children are given nutrient supplements, and before their very eyes, they are rehabilitated, and they can see changes in their growth and even their facial expressions during the time that they are working. So Dr. Gerardo is from Argentina, so she's fluent in Spanish, so she is very uniquely adept and skilled to take groups of students to Bolivia. And I visited the university that she takes the students, and you couldn't ask for a better cultural experience there. You learn about the food, the culture. You also go into the hospitals and learn about the unique differences between healthcare in a developing country like Bolivia compared to healthcare in the US. And we have our sports nutritionist, who is a director of a study away. And every summer, she somehow combines 3 different countries. And so it's an opportunity to be engaged in learning about food and culture, actually go out to like farmers markets and going into cheese making factories, for example. So this is a unique opportunity. We're hoping that the pandemic sooner versus later will get behind us so that these study abroads can take place as planned. And then the last just a couple comments I'll make. One is about assistantships, and Dr. Grossman will also touch on that. But I do encourage you to apply for assistantships. You would have an opportunity to be engaged in teaching as a teaching assistant. And when you get to your senior, your last year, if you are a doctoral student like Becca Gould is, you can become an instructor of record. And Becca is currently an instructor of record for our introductory nutrition. And that is an amazing selling point on your resume when you're looking for a position, particularly a position in an academic setting. But you are eligible for assistantships. You're eligible, you'll hear from some faculty in a few minutes that actually have guaranteed assistantships, and they're looking for students to fill those assistantships. And in addition to that, the department has assistantship funds that we're allocated from the college. And so the best students are assigned those assistantships. So if you want to work with a faculty member who may not have external funding, don't let that slow you down. Go ahead and indicate that that faculty is of major interest. They do have to commit to you as through your interaction with them. So we do want to support just as many of our graduate students as possible on assistantships. And again, Dr. Grossman will give you additional details. And there are so many opportunities in our department to be selected as a recipient of awards and scholarships. These are just a few of the awards and scholarships. We really help you build up your resume before you leave us, and recognition through awards and scholarships is a great way to do that. So what do you do with your degree? Well, I mentioned academics. So if you want positions like Dr. Grossman has, for example, teaching and guiding students, you come to the right place with a Ph.D. And then also you can be engaged in research, certainly in an academic setting, but also in an industry setting. We have our students often go into a postdoctoral research fellowship, and we have by government, I mean like the Center for Disease Control, which is only about 70 miles from us. So lots of options in terms of career opportunities. Also, and Dr. Grossman will touch on this, in the dietetics arena, you can go into a clinical position. You can become a research dietitian, or in a community setting where you are working with the public, and also in situations such as elder care, where you have one-on-one interaction with individuals who need a registered dietitian to provide dietary advice. And don't underestimate the opportunities in industry. We always invite representatives from various industries to come in with a PhD in nutrition and share with you what they actually do on a day-to-day basis. So very surprisingly, a lot of these food companies, they're very focused on ensuring, as they're developing new products, that it's a healthy product. And they're very concerned about the obesity epidemic in the US. So this is an opportunity for you to look for positions and get something in a real world experience away from clinical or community dietetics or academics. And public health, these are just a couple examples. I mentioned extension agents. We have paraprofessionals that are out in the community. Our area agency on aging is quite involved in providing nutrition information for the aged. And in our department, we have a program, the School Nutrition Director Certification Program. And that program is available for school directors, nutrition directors all over the state of Georgia. And they have to have this certification to be hired as a director. So it's an opportunity in terms of professional opportunity also for you to seek out to be a school nutrition director and have an impact on the nutritional intake of our school children. So you apply. How do you apply? There's two applications. One is just the generic graduate school application, and then we have our own departmental application. So our foods and nutrition application is due December the 10th. And we do encourage you to go ahead and get those submitted. We received quite a lot of applications. And then please reach out to faculty that really resonate with you in terms of their research programs and how it might prepare you for your professional interests. All right, so now I'm going to turn the program over to Dr. Grossman, who will focus her presentation on the dietetic internship.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bailey. And now let's see if I'm going to be able to figure out how to share my screen. Let's see, share screen. You see it's this one, share computer, share. Can you all see my screen? Can everybody see this PowerPoint here? Let me get this a little bit bigger. Slideshow from beginning. Can everybody see that now? Yes, nod your head.
It's on presenter mode if you don't want it on that, Dr. Grossman, or you want to just show part of it.
I want to display settings. Is that good?
That looks great.
Okay, thank you. So hey everybody, thanks again for joining us. And as Dr. Bailey said, I am Dr. Barbara Grossman. I am the Dietetic Internship Director in Foods and Nutrition. I'm also the graduate coordinator. The graduate coordinator oversees the entire graduate program, so I can answer your questions about the dietetic internship, but also about the entire graduate program, all the other masters. We have an online master's, non-thesis master's, PhD without the DI, PhD with the DI, etc. So to get started, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our mission of our dietetic internship is to prepare a diverse group of students as entry-level registered dietitian nutritionists for successful careers in dietetics and encourage students to assume leadership roles in their profession and in their society. So like all dietetic internship programs, we have our mission and we have program goals and outcomes, things like passage rate on the RD exam, how many people get a job when they finish. We have all of that information on our website. I don't want to go into all those little details right now, but of course, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have later about any of our outcomes. So to apply to our program, if you're interested in both our DI, dietetic internship, and the MS or the MSDI, I should stop here for a quick note. Of course, most of you probably realize we don't have a standalone dietetic internship. It's always combined with either the MS or the PhD. Currently, our PhD DI program is educating more PhD DIs than anybody else in the country. You may not realize, but less than 5% of dietitians have a PhD. So we're very excited and proud of that we're kind of elevating the profession by putting out a lot of PhD DI students. So when you apply for either the MSDI or the PhD DI. And for that combination, you have to have everything in by December 10th. It's all online. And of course, for those of you that are in a dietetics program right now, undergraduate, you know that there's a computer match that's in February, as well as the centralized application, the DICAS, it's also middle of February. And we'll talk about those in a minute. But we don't mess with those deadlines. It's just our application materials that are due December 10th. So submit to the graduate school. Like Dr. Bailey said, they're generic online application that's the same if you're applying for a PhD in history or PhD in physics or PhD in nutrition or MS in nutrition. It's all one generic application. You need 3 letters of recommendation. Those are submitted online. Normally we require GRE scores, but we are waiving those for this fall cycle. We understand that a lot of the testing sites are closed due to COVID, so we will not be requiring the GRE scores for this fall cycle. If you're an international student, you need to submit your TOEFL scores. And also the graduate school requires unofficial transcripts from everyone. So when you first apply, your transcripts can just be the ones that you can download, unofficial transcripts. If you end up applying to our program and coming, to our program, then the graduate school will then ask you for your official transcripts. But at least it's kind of nice initially, they can be unofficial. And then to submit to our Department of Foods and Nutrition, and again, it's the same deadline. We have an application. I just put the link here for the master's or the link to the PhD. It's the same application. And I'll show you a little screenshot of that in a minute. But on the Foods and Nutrition application, so you're sending in 2 applications, one to the graduate school and one to our department. It's all online. You will be asked to list 3 professors that you might be interested in doing your master's thesis or your PhD dissertation with. So how do you know who you want to do that with? On our application, there's a little link to this site, which is a bio of all of the faculty and their contact information. And it has like a little paragraph of what each professor, what kind of research they're doing. So that'll help you hone in on which professors have research interests that match with yours. And so you list those professors. And then I will also need, when you apply, either your verification statement. If you're done with your undergraduate dietetics program, you'll have this from your DPD director signed. If you're still in maybe your second or almost last semester of your dietetics program, which a lot of people are, then your program director gives you something called a statement of intent to complete form. So that just means you're going to finish up your dietetics coursework, and your DPD director signs that. So you just scan that form and upload that with your application. It's a place on our website to upload it, and your DPD director will know what you're talking about if you ask for those forms. So here's a little screenshot from our Foods and Nutrition application. So there's a little pull down menu. You click here and all the faculty appear, and you select professor number 1, professor number 2, and professor number 3. And right here is the little link to a bio of each of the faculty, so you can kind of educate yourself about who's doing what and which professors would be interesting to you. Okay, any questions about that? Amber, are you checking the chat box? Anybody have any questions about that little piece? No? Okay, thank you, Becca. And there'll be chances to ask me questions along the way also. So here's just a little slide about DICAS. Your program director will tell you about this. So it's a centralized application system, just like people applying to medical school. Everybody's gone to a centralized application system now. And that's usually due in mid-February. So we are required to participate in that. So I will review those in addition to the other application documents that you send to us. And then the D&D computer match, which most everybody realizes there's a computer match for internships. We participate in the spring computer match, which is usually mid-February. There's also a smaller fall match. We do not participate in that. So if you're interested in our MSDI or PhD DI, you have all your application materials in by December and enter the match in February, and then you would start in August. So all of my interns always start in August. So to be accepted into our internship, you have to finish your BS degree or bachelor's degree, completed all the undergraduate dietetics coursework, you send approved DPD coursework, be accepted into the graduate program and have a professor who has agreed to mentor you, and be successfully computer matched to our program. So these happen at different times. So I wanted to go over that a little bit because I know this can be a little confusing. So you put all your application materials in December, and then over December, the faculty in my department review all the applications, and they start to select students that they are interested in mentoring. So usually by late January, early February, if a faculty member has agreed to mentor you, you will get a letter of acceptance from our graduate school that will say, congratulations, you have been accepted into the master's or the PhD program in the Department of Foods and Nutrition. We take those pool of people that have been accepted, and those are the ones that we rank. So heads up, even if you come from a very strong program and you have a 4.0 and you apply to our program, if a professor does not agree to mentor you, then we do not accept you, because we don't want people coming into our program in the fall kind of wandering around with no professor to mentor them yet. So what I typically recommend that people that are serious about coming to our program do is in October, November, review our website, look at all the faculty, look at the ones that you're particularly interested in, and send them an email with your resume and, introduce yourself and say, I'm so-and-so from this school. I'm very interested in your research. I've attached my resume. I will be applying. And they will likely not commit to you right then because they will want to see the entire pool of applicants. But at least that gives them a resume, a name to remember, etc. So that's what I generally recommend. People do that in October, November. Just send an email to somebody that you'd be interested in working with. And I think it's also fair to ask, are you taking any students next fall? Sometimes faculty would love to take you, but their lab is really full. They already have 3 or 4 or 5 students and they just really can't fit anybody else. So I think that's a good question to ask too. Are you expecting to take any students next fall? And then of course we all want a computer match. So you put your rankings in middle of February. I put my rankings in end of March. You can reorder your rankings till the end of March. And I'll tell you why that's significant. Most students would like an assistantship. Dr. Bailey touched on this. So what is an assistantship? An assistantship is a stipend that we award to you. If you're a dietetic internship student, you get 10 checks a year. You don't get a check in June and July because you do most of your internship over 2 consecutive summers. So if you start in August, you do your coursework and research the first school year, and then in the first summer, you do 10 weeks of an internship. And I'll go over this again. And then you repeat that for a second year. So you do most of your internship over the first 2 consecutive summers. So we give you an assistantship, and for the assistantship, typically you're help a professor be a TA for a class. So I teach intro nutrition, so which is typically a large class. So sometimes I have 1, sometimes 2 teaching assistants for intro nutrition, and that's how they're earning their assistantship. So you get a check. And you can ask the grad students later in this session, is it enough money? Can you live on these checks? How are the assistantships? A big benefit of having an assistantship is you don't pay tuition. So you pay fees, but not tuition. So that's a really big benefit too. Even if you're out of state, even if you're out of the country, you do not pay tuition. So fees, last I checked, were about $1,100 in the fall and $1,100 in the spring. And in the summer, about $500. An assistantship can come from departmental money. If it's from departmental money, then we give priority to Ph.D. students and DI students. If it's you're with a professor and they have a grant, external money, they can give you an assistantship off of their grant. And it's strictly up to them who they award their assistantship to. So the assistantship can come from either departmental money, or the professor if they have a grant. So here's a scenario. What if you get accepted into, say, our PhD program, you get a letter at the end of January, and it's the middle of February, and you've not heard from us about an assistantship. So you're getting a little nervous, so you don't rank us very high by the middle of February when you have to put your rankings in. Let's say a week later, you get an assistantship letter from us. You can reorder your rankings till the end of March. That's why the reordering is significant. We do our best to give assistantship letters before that mid-February deadline, but sometimes we don't have our budget. And so we do the best we can. But I just wanted to remind you, you can reorder your rankings. Any questions at this point about any of this?
Dr. Grossman, I know I'm not applying, but do you see the rankings? Would that influence the assistantship offer, or do you not see the rankings until the final submission at the end of March?
Do I see the rankings?
In terms of, you mentioned that they could re-rank, but I didn't know if you could see.
Yeah, I can't see a student's rankings. I can't see how students have ranked us at all. And they can't, all I can see is if they have put us somewhere on a list, but I don't know where on the list. So that's all I know. Good question. Thank you, Beth. So when you come in the fall, you present me with a verification statement from your undergraduate dietetics program director that verifies to me that you do have the undergraduate dietetics coursework. I'm required from Ascend to get this from everyone. I do all the internship scheduling for the students, and like I said earlier, most of the internships over the first 2 consecutive summers, even if you are a PhD DI student, you do the internship in the first 24 months that you come. So that being said, a PhD student will come and they'll finish the dietetic internship in the first 24 months. I do not give them a verification statement until they're done with their PhD, which is usually another 2 years. So just for full transparency, I cannot hand a student, a PhD DI student, a verification statement to take the RD exam until they're done with the PhD. So there is a lag between the time when you finish your hospital rotations and you take the RD exam, like a 2-year lag. I have just had a group of students take the RD exam and they all passed on their first try. So I think we're okay there, but I just like to be completely transparent about that. If you're a master's student, you finish the whole program in 24 months. As soon as you're done with that second summer, you take the RD exam. So
Dr. Grossman, you have a question in the chat box.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it to you?
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so if a student is offered an assistantship, is that a guarantee that they will be matched if UGA is ranked #1 from the student?
Good question, very good question. We do tend to rank higher our students that have been given an assistantship. We try to get the whole package together, that you have been accepted into the graduate program. If you're given an assistantship, we rank you highly. I can think of one occasion in 20 plus years I've been doing this, I think we just had a lot of extra money one year, and a student did not get the DI, but they did get an assistantship. At that point, you do have the choice. You probably got matched someplace else. You do have the choice to go where you got your ranking for the DI. Sometimes students will come and they won't match, but they will be given an assistantship. I guess that's just what I said. So that's, so you have the choice at that point. You can turn us down and go wherever you did get the DI. Students typically have come for the master's and they get the assistantship, because then by the time they're done, they're applying for just a standalone DI and they already have a master's. So they're pretty competitive at that point. But we do try to get it to all line up. So some supervised practice is completed during the school year. The academy in 2012 went to 1,200 hours from 900, and it would have been honestly pretty hard for you to complete 1,200 hours just in 2 summers. So you take a class with me, FDN 7911, which is the internship class. You take it fall, spring, 4 times. Also, some of the research you do with your major professor, actually 300 hours. The academy has allowed me to credit towards the 1,200 supervised practice hours. So that's wonderful. So current sites for rotations, if you were to match with us and you would come in August to take this class, I will put you on the UJ campus for just 3 hours a week. So it's not a big impact. You're starting to take classes, you're starting your research. You can't hop in your car and run to a hospital somewhere. So we use cooperative extension. UGA Health Service has 3 dietitians. UGA Food Service, Catherine Ingerson is the dietitian. They do a wonderful job. We also, I didn't put on here UGA Athletics. They have 5 dietitians with the 17 sports teams we have at UGA. So I can place an intern there. SNAP Ed research, like Dr. Bailey talked about. We have a childhood obesity community research project that Dr. Cartwright. So we have a lot of opportunities that are just right on campus. You just walk over to another building. So you can start collecting community hours as soon as you get here, and it's not a huge impact. And then the first summer, you do 6 weeks of medical nutrition therapy 1, 4 weeks of food service. Just FYI, from the end of finals in May to the beginning of classes in the fall is about 13 weeks, and I schedule about 10 of those 13. So you do have a little bit of break in the summer. The second academic year, again, you take a class with me. This time, instead of 3 hours a week, it's just 10 hours total in the fall and 10 hours total in the spring. There's a clinic on the UJ campus that is run out of our college of family and consumer science called the Aspire Clinic. And my second year dietetic interns go there and give nutrition education one-on-one. We service the UJ community as well as the Athens area community. So sometimes people want to come and just, I'm running out of money, classes, and I need to learn how to eat healthy on a budget. My students cannot do any medical nutrition therapy because they are not licensed, but they can do general nutrition education. So that's on campus. You earn a few more hours. And then the second summer, 4 weeks of medical nutrition therapy, 4 weeks of nutrition support, 2 weeks of community, again, 10 hours, and then you're done in the second August. Just FYI, sometimes I have students that are not especially interested in clinical dietetics, or they don't want to be in a hospital. They tell me when they finish. I can tailor this a little bit. You don't have to have 4 weeks of MNT2. I can turn this into school nutrition. I can turn this into sports nutrition. I can turn this into more community. So I can try to tailor your internship experiences to your preferences. I do give my interns a form every fall. Where would you like to go next summer? I do the best that I can. Do you want to go to Atlanta? Do you not want to go to Atlanta? I try to work with the students, but in the end, it's availability of preceptors and internship sites that determines the schedule. We do have 2 concentrations. All programs are required to have 1. We have 2, you just complete one of them. One is medical nutrition therapy, and the second is community intervention and research. Each of these has 3 competencies. And like I said, you just complete one. We have a lot of faculty that do research in the community. If one of these faculty is your professor for your thesis research, then you will essentially automatically complete this competency. So a sample rotation schedule. The first academic year you're with me, maybe I'll place you in a cooperative extension 3 hours a week while you're taking classes. The first summer, Newton Medical Center, which is just outside of Athens a bit. Hall County Schools. The second school year, you take a class with me again. This time you're at the Aspire Clinic, 10 hours in the fall, 10 hours in the spring. And the second summer, maybe you'll go to the health department here in Athens. If you're interested in pediatrics, Atlanta has a world-class pediatric hospital, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And then there's Piedmont Hospital also. I have 25 plus internship sites. I'm always adding more. So there is a lot of variety of where you can go. It is essential to have a car. There are 2 hospitals in Athens, but generally speaking, they take 1 intern at a time. And generally, I send my second year interns to those hospitals. I just will go through this briefly. If any of you have ever done a practicum or volunteered in a hospital, you know that you have to sign your firstborn away nowadays to even get into a hospital. You have to have TB tests, immunizations, a flu shot, professional liability insurance, CPR certification, criminal background check, drug screen. When you take the class with me, we do usually one of these a month so that you don't have to pay for all of this and do all of this in 1 month. So it's not such a huge financial impact. This is the assistantship information. So when you're taking classes at UGA, if you have an assistantship, tuition is waived, but fees must still be paid. And however, during the dietetic rotation, the summers, the students are not eligible, so you don't get a check usually for a couple of months, but your tuition is still waived in the summer. Let's see. So in order to get a verification statement from me that says you're done with a dietetic internship and that you are ready to take the RD exam. So I process all my graduating interns every August with the Commission on Dietetic Registration and tell them that my students are ready. You just have to complete all your rotations, give me all the forms that I need, and complete an exit interview with me. I see my interns pretty frequently, so we never really have any problems with this. So how many credit hours do you have to do for the master's? It's 30 credit hours. Some of this is research hours, so it's not really like 30 credit hours sitting in a big lecture hall. And then 14 hours of internship. You actually take a class in the summer when you're on your internship, and you take a class from me each of the 4 semesters. For PhD, it's 46 hours of graduate coursework and 14 hours of internship. You have to maintain a minimum 3.0 GPA with no incompletes, successfully complete and defend your thesis, and submit everything to the graduate school. Are our students successful? Of the last 20 years, 17 of those years we have been recipients of the Outstanding Dietetic Student Award. In the last 5 years, 100% of our graduates have passed the RD exam within their first try. I just want to give a little shout out to my recent grads that just finished in August. I got them certified through Commission on Dietetic Registration by about the middle of August. They all have to give me their final transcripts, and I send that in for them. And by September 24th, all of 6 of them had passed the RD on their first try. And the reason I think it's notable is because, as you all know, almost all hospitals were closed this past summer. So I could not send my interns into the field, which was breaking my heart. So we met as a group every week, and I had to give them modules in exchange for experiential learning. And we used EHR Go for charting, and we did the best we could. But as you well know, that's not really the best substitute for experiential learning, but they really put their pedal to the metal and they all passed the RD exam on their first try. So I'm very proud of them. 100% of our graduates are working in the field of foods and nutrition or completing an advanced degree in nutrition. So where do our students go? A lot of my students, especially with a master's, their first job often is in a hospital. Some go into school nutrition, home health care, wellness centers. Both of the hospitals in Athens, St. Mary's and Athens Regional have wellness centers, and my students have gone on to work there. Sports nutrition. I often have several interns that are very interested in sports nutrition. And as you all know, UGA is a big athletic school, so I can place my students with one of the 5 RDs that are in the UGA athletic sports when they're interested in that. Sometimes they can, after they finish, they can go on to work there. The health department, if you're interested in WIC, community health, government positions, we have students placed in USDA and also in the CDC down the road in Atlanta. Research positions, one of my interns finished, she was an MSDI and she practices a dietitian, clinical dietitian for a while, and then she came back to UGA and got a Ph.D. in public health and is now a faculty member in public health. Marketing, product development, cooperative extension, as we've talked about. So here's our graduates from 2008, and this is everybody. It's not just the people that got a job, I promise. Janissa Gordon was always very interested in infants, and she's working in a NICU unit in Augusta, in Children's Hospital of Georgia. Elizabeth Klingbeil is an assistant professor. She went through our Ph.D. DI program. She's an assistant professor at Johnson & Wales, very well-known culinary university. Taylor Newman is a doctoral student, Ph.D. DI. She'll be finishing in December. She's very interested in policy. Emily Rollins Miller, a school nutrition in Atlanta area. Emily Self-King, clinical dietitian. She's from Cordele, which is South Georgia, South Central Georgia. She really wanted to go home after she was done. And in her second summer, I was able to get a contract and place her in Crisp Regional Hospital, where she was an intern. And then when she finished, they hired her. So that's a happy story. Hannah Urban is in Lakewood, Colorado, as a clinical dietitian. The second group of students, 4 of the 6, decided to go for our PhD DI track. So that's Becca Gould, Allie Limke, Liana Roderick, she just got married during COVID, and Hannah Wilson. So they will all be finishing in probably next May, or right around then. Emily Unwin was always very interested in health and wellness and yoga. And so she's has a private practice in a yoga facility here in Athens. And Hannah Winston is from Richmond, Virginia. She went to Virginia Tech. Again, in her second summer, I sent her home to do part of her clinical rotations. And then when she finished, they hired her. So that was a nice story too. So that's it for my presentation. We have our dietetic internship handbook on the web, which gives you a little more information about it. I'm happy to answer any questions. Am I doing okay for time, I hope? And there's my contact information, and it's also on the web. So thank you very much.
Dr. Grossman, you have one question in the chat. I'll read it to you.
Okay.
If we have an undergraduate degree in exercise science and want to take the courses within the master's program to qualify for the internship, is that possible? And can we be offered an assistantship still?
So if you are missing some DPD courses, there's a couple of things you can do. You can come into our program as a master's degree student or a PhD student and pick up the DPD courses on while you're earning your graduate degree. When you finish, however, you can't then just apply for a dietetic internship, because Ascend requires me to have students that have everything at the beginning. So you would then finish the master's or the PhD and then apply for a standalone dietetic internship someplace else. Alternatively, you could come to UGA and pick up the missing dietetics courses as a non-degree seeking student, and pick up all your missing courses. Our undergraduate dietetics program director, Dr. Emma Lang, can review your transcripts. You could just email her your unofficial transcripts and she would tell you what courses you're missing and when they are offered at UGA. And she would make you a little program of study. You could take them as a non-degree seeking student, finish them, and then apply to either our MSDI or PhD DI. In terms of assistantship, if a professor has a grant and wants to give you an assistantship out of their grant, that's completely up to them. In terms of departmental assistantships, you would be less competitive than somebody that already has, is applying for the DI or just a straight PhD. I don't know if Dr. Bailey wants to weigh in on that or not, but that's how I think things would go.
There's a couple more questions in the chat. Do you want me to read those aloud to you?
Okay, maybe I can look.
You can see them.
I quit sharing my screen. If we have an undergraduate exercise science, what is a top quality looked for an applicant for MSDI? What is a top quality? That's a good question, but a hard question. We kind of look at the whole application. We do look favorably if somebody has some research experience, even if you're just helping somebody in a lab, because we're pretty research heavy in our department. So it's helpful if you've helped another professor, for a semester on a research project in their lab, I would say. That's one thing. From an intern's perspective, what would they say are the most challenging aspects of the program or the most favorite? We do have an intern on here. Becca is.
Yes, I think I'm the only one.
Yeah, well, I'll say a couple things, and you can tell me whether, and then you say some things too, Becca. So Becca's one of our PhD DI students, doing a great job, and she'll be finishing in May. She will be talking to you. You have a lot going on. You have a challenging thing. You're taking classes. You're probably a TA for a class. You're doing research. You're in the dietetic internship. The classes you take with me, fall, spring, are not really intensive. I know that you're pretty busy, so you present case studies, and things like that. So you have to have, I would say, good time management skills. I would say that. What is or most favorite? Prior to COVID, we get together a lot and have a good time. But with COVID, I don't see anybody. I miss everybody. I miss my students. But Becca, why don't you chime in there?
Oh, you'll learn very quickly your time management skills if you don't already have them. But no, I think it depends on what lab you're into. If it's, you know exactly what the schedule is. Dr. Grossman's very understanding and also gives you your schedule way ahead of time. So you know your schedule. So if you are working with rodents or anything, or humans, you have the availability to adjust your schedule accordingly. And yeah, it goes by really fast. So I don't think it's too crazy. Again, she gives you it way ahead of time. And then the favorite, I love the hospital setting. So I always like going in and having that opportunity. And you really are treated as, they're teaching you to be a dietitian. So you're not just following someone around like you would have as an undergrad kind of volunteering. You're really given you're doing staff relief, you're doing what a dietitian would do. So yeah, that's all I was gonna add.
Somebody says, are we applying to just the MS? Are there still 2 applications, one for graduate school, one for the department? Yes, good question. Whether you're applying for the MS or PhD or whatever, there's always the graduate school application. The graduate school requires that. And then we always have a foods and nutrition application. When we list 3 professors we're interested in working with on the application, are those the only professors we can consider us to work in their lab, or will all professors still be able to consider? All professors will look at all applications. Yes, good question, thank you. And you have to write a little personal statement. You could put it in there too. I've listed these 3 professors, but I'd be interested in working, generally in these areas. One thing on the personal statement, this happens occasionally, not that often. Sometimes somebody will put something really specific, like that's all they're interested in. And what if we don't have a professor? One time we had somebody say they were interested in pediatric dentistry. And I'm like, we don't do that, you know? So you want to be a little broad, you know, say I'm interested in this area and this area too, you know, et cetera. What we try to do is we try not to put somebody that really is not at all interested in basic research in a lab where you're going to have to be picking up and weighing rats every day, right? Or what if you want to do that? What if you want to move test tubes around and now you're in a lab where you're at the health department? Sometimes people want both, but generally it falls out into people that want kind of basic science, or somebody that wants community nutrition, or the clinical nutrition. We have, you know, actual humans coming into our department being weighed and having maybe blood drawn, you know, that's the clinical nutrition. Sometimes there's overlap between two groups, and you can express that in your personal statement.
Dr. Grossman, can I add one thing to that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, it's Becca. All I was going to say was what's really helpful when you email the professors ahead of time too is that sometimes what they're currently or what they just got funding for isn't necessarily what's listed on their website. So it's very helpful if you reach out to professors too, because what happened to me is I was really interested in a professor, and he actually, based on my interest, recommended me to talk to another professor, which is who my PI is now. So that was very influential in how I'm doing here as well.
Okay. What can I do between now and August to best prepare me for the internship? For the internship, if you have a chance to shadow a dietitian, that would be helpful. I would think, you know, not essential, but that's helpful. To prepare you for applying to our program, like I said, if you can get any kind of research experience, I would think that would be helpful. And when I say research, that's not like in rats in a lab. It could be somebody doing community research. You know, anytime you get yourself familiar with data analysis, you know, collecting data from people, that's always helpful. Let's see, when applying to PhD program, will the DI admission team look at my DICAS application or department? We mostly look at the department. I look at the DICAS just because I feel like you all took the time to do it. The least I can do is look at it, you know. And it's okay if your personal statement is the same on DICAS as on our departmental recommendation, our departmental application. They can be the same. My name, I'm from the University of Florida. How often do students participate in study abroad, and how does that fit into their schedule? A Florida student, right now I have 2 Florida students. Students haven't asked me to go on study abroad. I can consider that. You would have to be able to meet some competencies while you're on your study abroad. That's my job. My responsibility to you is to make sure you meet your competencies, right? So we would just talk on that one-on-one. Honestly, I think maybe I've had 1 student that wanted to do that car ride. So that I would just do that on an individual basis. I would talk to you about that. That are going to talk to you in real time. And then after that, we have a little pre-recorded of faculty that weren't able to join in real time. So the first person is Dr. Joe Kindler. And Amber, can you facilitate helping him if he needs to share a screen or whatever he needs to do? Dr. Kindler, are you here?
I am, yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, there it is. Okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry, I've been having issues with these past couple of days, so I'm glad it's working all right. Amber, is it going to be okay to share my screen? Okay, it looks like I can. So I am just going to throw up a little schematic to kind of share along as I'm giving the rundown of the lab here. So yeah, this isn't the ideal way, I think, to, you know, we're dealing with a lot going on in the world right now. So it's unfortunate we can't be in person together, but I hope everybody's doing okay and at least enjoying the program that I know Dr. Grossman and Amber have done a really nice job with. So I do want to give a little bit of a rundown on the lab. So the name of my lab is the Nutrition and Skeletal Health Lab. So I recently joined the faculty here in Foods and Nutrition after completing postdoc training at Purdue University, the University of Pennsylvania Perelman School of Medicine, and the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So my general area of interest is understanding the role of diet and chronic disease in childhood growth. So really with a particular emphasis on bone development. So we're really interested in understanding what dietary behaviors chronic diseases are doing to the growing skeleton. Currently, we're really diving in on understanding the effects of type 2 diabetes in childhood and adolescence and how that's influencing bone development, fracture risk, and then long-term health trajectories with respect to osteoporosis and fracture. So that's sort of one area of study, and then also sort of emphasize understanding the role of these diet chronic diseases on obesity and obesity-related chronic disease. So we're also working on a separate project in collaboration with the group at Cincinnati Children's Hospital and the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia to understand the effects of excess visceral fat in subclinical markers of cardiovascular disease progression. So that's sort of the general area of study that I'm interested in. Again, just starting the lab up here, so getting things going, putting a lot of grant applications out in those areas, in particular in the area of determinants of childhood growth. This is a really a priority area in the NIH right now, is understanding sort of these dynamic effects of diet and chronic disease in bone accrual during the childhood and adolescent years. So we'll really be targeting requests for applications and trying to secure funding for studies, for clinical and translational studies in that area of work. So that is pretty much the big picture of the lab here. This diagram here that I'm sharing with you sort of puts a picture to what I just described here. So the effects of diet, chronic disease, physical activity on bone growth, but also trying to identify gaps in clinical and translational methodologies in terms of assessing bone health in growing individuals. So sort of big picture ideas here with this picture using some of these technologies. I'm just going to change I can't really see the picture here. Using clinical laboratory techniques, including dual energy X-ray absorptiometry, peripheral quantitative computed tomography. So we do have really unique resources and experiences here in the lab that I'm really excited to continue building off of and leveraging through the really rich thought leaders in the department as well as across the university. And I am currently recruiting students that are interested in training in bone biology, the childhood to adolescent, the adolescent to adult transition. So I do have funding for a doctoral student to start next fall. So, if you're interested in learning more about the lab, sort of where the direction is going to take, we're going to be going in the next couple of years here. I'd love to chat more. So feel free to reach out to me. My email's here at the bottom. We also have a website set up through the departmental web or the college's webpage. So you can also take a look there. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. We can set up a call to talk, Zoom discussion, however you'd like. And yeah, I'm a resource here. If you want to learn more about the department, whatever, please feel free to ask. So it's very nice to meet you guys all virtually, and I'll look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kindler. The next person we have speaking is Dr. Sina Gallo. So, Amber,
yeah.
I don't know.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. So I don't have any slides. You can go to the lab website and there's a video there if anyone is interested in some of the work that I'll talk about. The lab is child diet and health disparities. So I'm an associate professor. I just joined like Dr. Kindler this summer or this crazy summer. And I came though from another faculty position. I was at George Mason University for 7 years before coming to UGA. I'm also a registered dietitian. I completed all my training at McGill University in Montreal. That's also where I'm from. So my area of research is really interested in critical periods of pregnancy, infancy, and early childhood. And I'm particularly interested in working with racial and ethnic minority populations, specific in the United States. So I'm interested in domestic, much more domestic research. So I was trained in the area of infant vitamin D requirements. And when I came to the United States, I was really surprised that only a third of US infants are actually getting vitamin D supplementation. So one of my areas of interest is working on how to improve adherence with vitamin D requirements and to prevent bone diseases like rickets, which continues to occur. I'm also interested and have done work with the WIC population. So WIC is a federal food assistance program, and I've worked at the local level and now more recently working with large national data exploring breastfeeding. So the recommendation is to exclusively breastfeed for 6 months, but about a quarter of US women actually are doing that. And it's even lower among racial and ethnic minorities in the United States, particularly African American and Latina women. And so I'm interested in how we can intervene to promote breastfeeding among those groups. I also have a project that's currently funded through my professional organization, that's the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. It's to look at the accuracy of children's dietary recall. So this project will involve going into the schools, and right now it's on hold because of COVID. We hope to be able to start this up next year. But we will go in and do direct observation of children and then compare that to what they're actually reporting, and to look at if there's any differences in their ability to report their intake based on their age, BMI, as well as their race, ethnicity. So dietary assessment, as those that work with children, is particularly challenging with that group. So this will hopefully help with that. And the last area that I'm interested in, although I have lots of interest, as you can see, is in pediatric obesity. I worked during my previous, my time at George Mason University. We developed a weight management program for Latino children. So Latino children have some of the highest rates of pediatric obesity in the United States, but they have less access to healthcare and to a weight management program. So we developed this program with colleagues in exercise as well as in psychology to deliver this to Latino children. These are low-income Latino children who were actually, most of them were in the obese category. So they were at high risk for comorbidities. And so this was done at my previous institution, although this is still an area of interest and I'm still involved with the group, although someone else has taken over the project since I've left. So if these are projects or any areas of interest, I am also looking for a PhD student for the fall, and but you can go on the lab site and review any of the other information that's there.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gallo. And I think Dr. Anderson is speaking next. Is Dr. Anderson on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm Alex Anderson, and my lab is Maternal and Child Nutrition Research Lab. I have a number of overlapping interests with Sina Gallo, as she presented. Yeah, so I do some work here and some international. Also interested in pregnancy nutrition, pregnancy outcome, and early child feeding practices, and how to support mothers breastfeed and do that successfully. We just finished a project in Burkina Faso, which is to help small-scale farmers in guinea fowl husbandry improve on their birds production, and also as a way of economic empowerment for women with younger children. So we are writing this up, and there's going to be a second phase that we're going to apply for the grant first quarter of next year. And I also have a project in Ghana on dietary assessment. And for this dietary assessment, we are using technology, passive devices, to objectively assess dietary intake and nutrient analysis among urban and rural households. So this project is funded by the Gates Foundation and still ongoing in Ghana. We are now moving into the validation phase, a second phase of the validation study for the devices And as part of the project, we are also going to set up a database, nutrient database for low-income countries. So I'm also looking forward to having or recruiting graduate students, but currently I don't have personal funding. So hopefully, maybe I may get something through the department till I have future grant to support graduate students. So you can email me if you are interested to talk more. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. And we have one more faculty member who's joining us in real time, and that's Dr. Claire de la Serre. And after her, then we'll roll our little video of the pre-recorded faculty presentations. Dr. de la Serre?
Yes, is this working? Can you see the?
Yep.
Yay. It's nice to meet you all. My name is Claire de la Serre. I'm an associate professor in the department. I am one of those who weight rats every day and spin tubes around that Dr. Grossman was talking about. So I do basic science research on the rodent model. My lab works mostly on understanding how chronic consumption of palatable food promotes overeating, and especially looking at the gut-brain axis, which regulates food intake. So our current project looks at how this nerve is involved in the regulation of feeding and how this regulation is altered with certain diets. And I'm especially interested in the role of the microbiota in driving some of those alterations. So it's my 8th year in this department. I've had Ph.D. and master student working with me in the past, both DI and non-DI. And we currently have a new project starting that is funded through the NIH. And so I will be recruiting students in the fall. You can see here in the screen, those are my main subjects, little white rats. So if you're interested in working with them, feel free to email me and set up a Zoom call at some point.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. de la Serre. Okay, next, Amber's going to roll the video of some pre-recorded faculty presentations. They're each about a minute, minute and a half of several faculty.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to visit the Department of Foods and Nutrition today. I am Dr. Kari Cotright. I'm an assistant professor here at the University of Georgia in the Department of Foods and Nutrition. I am the director of the Childhood Obesity Prevention Laboratory. And in our laboratory, we aim to reduce the risk of childhood obesity for children ages 0 to 5. We also aim to create healthy early care and education environments. That means that I work directly with child care providers, with parents, and with young children. We also aim to promote different messages related to preventing childhood obesity. I am funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to promote healthy beverages and increase water consumption. And I also have funding from the USDA SNAP-Ed program to promote policy systems and environmental approaches for wellness best practices in early care and education, as well as direct intervention. What makes one of my approaches for direct intervention in education unique is that I use arts-based approaches such as music, theater, and dance to promote nutrition messages to young children. I'm also interested in health equity, empowering communities of color to make healthy lifestyle changes to thrive, as well as community-based participatory research. In my laboratory, we do many things around the community that are community engaged that also involve research. So that's what you would learn about here with me, as well as promoting nutrition education in a way that is rooted and grounded in science. I am just so excited that you came here today to find out more about our program. And I think that our program is a great place to get your graduate degree because I earned both of my graduate degrees right here at the University of Georgia. I hope you're able to get all your questions answered. Please feel free to email me. All of my information is available on the website. So thank you, enjoy today, and go dogs.
Cooper. I'm a professor in the Department of Foods and Nutrition, and I'm also the director of the Human Nutrition Lab. My research here at UGA is focused on clinical nutrition. We're interested specifically in the effects of different nutrients, foods, and diets on energy balance and chronic disease risk. More specifically, we focus on dietary fats in my lab. So we're interested in determining whether dietary fatty acid composition differentially affects appetite regulation, metabolism, and markers of chronic disease risk such as cholesterol, blood lipids, lipid metabolism, inflammation, glycemic regulation, and the list goes on. In addition to the work I just mentioned, we also are interested in body weight regulation, and we've done some interesting studies on the impact of holidays and short-term vacations on weight change or weight gain in adults, and now we're also working on some novel behavior modification techniques to try to prevent weight gain during susceptible times of the year, such as vacations and holidays. I'm also the director of the area of emphasis in sports nutrition for our graduate program. And as an athlete myself and someone who teaches the sports nutrition courses here, I'm always anxious to work with students that are interested in sports nutrition and want a potential career in that field. Our lab also occasionally does some research studies in the area of sports nutrition, especially related to endurance performance.
Good morning. My name is Sylvia Gerardo. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Foods and Nutrition, and I'm also a double dog. I did my master's and Ph.D. here some years ago. My teaching is in the area of graduate and undergraduate and the different courses that the department has. And in regard to another thing that I do is I lead some of the study abroads that the department has. And my particular ones are Bolivia and Australia, where students have the opportunity to do experiential learning with hands-on practices in hospitals and clinics. My research interest is in community nutrition and childhood obesity in the state of Georgia. So one of the projects that carry around is the evaluation of the elements that the extension agents have to provide interventions in the community in the area of childhood obesity. The second one is to train students in community research, where they will learn how to provide interventions that are more effective in teaching nutrition education to the kids and to the adults. And one of my biggest interests in the future is to do the same, but with the Hispanic community, where
Hi, I'm Dr. Arthur Greider, an associate professor in the Department of Foods and Nutrition. I currently teach the macronutrient and micronutrient nutrition courses in our department. My research interests involve zinc and its role in the transcriptional regulation of gene expression and protein synthesis. Understanding zinc and its roles in cellular physiology and human health are important because this trace element is a component of over 300 different enzymes and other proteins. Worldwide, differing degrees of zinc depletion have been observed based on the widespread consumption of diets either low in zinc or high in zinc-binding compounds that restrict its absorption, or a combination of these. In addition, a reliable bioassay to assess zinc nutriture has not been developed to date. I've studied the role of zinc in protein expression in tissue from experimental animal models as well as in humans using proteomic techniques such as two-dimensional gel electrophoresis and mass spectrometry. I've been involved with studies to identify compounds in humans and in rodent sera that are responsive to differing levels of dietary zinc. My current interests include the role of zinc in the transcriptional regulation of small non-coding RNAs, such as microRNAs and small nucleolar RNAs. These are being studied using bioinformatic databases as well as in cell culture model systems. These may also be responsive to changes in levels of dietary zinc and have the potential to serve as biomarkers of zinc nutriture. Please feel free to contact me via email for more information.
Hi, my name is Dr. Jennifer Cox, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Foods and Nutrition at the University of Georgia. My research centers on conducting sensory evaluation of food products and recipes in both traditional and non-traditional populations. Sensory science is the study of the reactions to characteristics of foods and materials as they are perceived by the human senses. Now, traditional populations include individuals who would come to a specified space in order to participate in sensory testing. Many times on college campuses, a major demographic utilized for conducting sensory evaluation would be the 18 to 24-year-old age group, which makes sense because that age group is found on college campuses. Often, non-traditional populations who are needed include limited resource consumers, consumers with health issues, and even younger student populations. These individuals contain really pertinent data that is needed for the development of recipes and food products, but there are many barriers that don't allow these individuals to easily participate in sensory evaluation. During my time at UGA, I have been involved in several sensory evaluation projects conducted in community settings, which allows us to gather that much needed data from these very important populations. My lab, which is the Sensory Evaluation and Product Development Lab, houses sensory booths, which are utilized for sensory evaluation, as well as a product development space, and that consists of equipment for recipe and food product development. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me at gocox@uga.edu. Thanks and take care.
Hi, so my name is Allie Berg and I work in the Department of Foods and Nutrition. I'm an associate professor and an extension nutrition health specialist. And so what that means is I work for Cooperative Extension, which is part of the service and outreach mission of the University of Georgia. And we do community education in nutrition and health. So a lot of our programs are around things like diabetes prevention, diabetes self-management, cancer prevention, weight management, and general nutrition education, like how to create a healthy meal, how to cook for your family. And so our research primarily centers around the effectiveness of these programs and how to encourage our extension agents or educators to implement these programs and what kind of supports they need to be able to do so. So we've done work around our cancer prevention program to see how that helps people change their eating behaviors and their cancer screening compliance. We are currently working on some diabetes prevention program work where our agents are implementing the National Diabetes Prevention Program, and we're exploring how that program impacts people's nutrition and physical activity behavior, but also what's needed from Extension to support agents in delivering these programs so that they continue to offer these to our community and that we get the results that we're looking for. I currently have one Ph.D. student and I don't have much for a lab to show because our lab is really the community. So I look forward to learning about you all and perhaps welcoming somebody into our lab. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the open house day. My name is Dr. Lillian Sattler, and I am an assistant professor in the Department of Foods and Nutrition and in the Department of Clinical and Administrative Pharmacy. And my research focuses on the management of diet and pharmacotherapy in cardiovascular disease management, specifically on heart failure and the management of heart failure in advanced heart failure patients. We know a lot about how we can prevent cardiovascular conditions and how to prevent heart failure and associated comorbidities. And we have an understanding or an idea of that we should reduce sodium. At least that's kind of it's debated right now. But we don't really have a good understanding of dietary patterns and how they influence the management of the condition. So that's something we're working on from a clinical perspective. So we're doing clinical research as well as epidemiological research, also focused on diabetes development among heart failure patients. Again, where diet comes in, and that is the angle we're taking. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you're interested in our research, just send me an email, and I hope you're enjoying this open house. Bye.
Hi, I'm Dr. Emily Noble, and I am excited to introduce you to my research program today. So my lab is called the Nutritional Neuroscience Lab, and you may be thinking to yourself, what is nutritional neuroscience? So obviously, nutritional neuroscience deals with the brain, and there's a certain type of brain cells called a neuron, which produces neuropeptides. And some of the more famous ones that you're probably familiar with are things like dopamine and serotonin. And in my lab, we focus on some other neuropeptides called orexins, oxytocin, and melanin concentrating hormone. And we're specifically interested in how these neuropeptides impact feeding behavior. Not just overall food intake, but also reward-based feeding, motivation for food intake, impulsive eating, learning and memory around feeding. So like conditioned feeding, you know, how when you see a billboard, maybe you feel hungrier at the sight of the food or the smell of food. So we kind of study all of those things, or all aspects. We are also interested in how diet and exercise impact the brain and neurocognitive function. So in some cases, we look at early life exposure to different types of diets and how that impacts the brain and brain development, and sometimes during adulthood. Now, because we're a basic science lab and we're really interested in mechanism, so not just are these things impacting the brain, but really how are they impacting the brain, we utilize rodent models. And specifically mainly rat models in my lab. And yeah, so in a nutshell, that is our research program here. I am very sad that I don't get to meet you all in person. I will be delighted to meet you in the future. And thank you for listening to my presentation.
Welcome to Dr. Hennis's virtual lab. One of my main roles here at UGA is State Coordinator for FNEP, the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program. This federally funded program provides nutrition education for low-income families and pregnant women across the state of Georgia. Our peer educators deliver 8 interactive face-to-face sessions to our participants with our Food Talk curriculum. We have an adult curriculum and a youth curriculum, which serves 9th through 12th graders. As you can see, we've reached over 18,000 family members across the state of Georgia in 2019. We're federally mandated to evaluate our program with enrollment and exit surveys that capture demographic information, self-reported health behaviors, and a 24-hour dietary intake. Our graduate students can get involved by helping to expand our program evaluation and looking at and asking creative research questions for program impact on our adults and our youth. The Food Master Initiative is another research program that I'm involved with. It teaches math and science concepts through food and nutrition. The goal of this NIH SEPA grant is to support STEM learning for underserved minority youth through informal learning environments. This program is led by Dr. Melanie Dufresne, which also works to create a Deep South network with collaborators from Illinois, Alabama, Mississippi, North and South Carolina. As the Georgia partner, my work with Food Master focuses on programming with middle to high school youth with the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta and with 4-H, with UGA 4-H. Other areas of research and research interest include using my clinical and community nutrition background to develop programs and interventions for overweight youth and their families, particularly in underserved populations. My research program also focuses on translating the science of energy balance and metabolism into the community and clinical setting. This is through nutrition assessment with indirect calorimetry, but also in nutrition education, so as to help youth learn nutrition concepts while also promoting dietary behavior change. If you have any questions and are interested, please contact me at sarah.hennis@uga.edu.
Hi, and welcome to Dr. Lay's Community Nutrition Lab at the University of Georgia, where we work closely with the UGA SNAP-Ed program. Student projects in our lab can range anywhere from working with food and nutrition policy to supporting SNAP-Ed programming. So what exactly is UGA SNAP-Ed? Follow us and we'll show you.
Student responsibilities in the UGA SNAP-Ed lab range from running programming in the community to creating content for the SNAP-Ed website, foodtalk.org, like blogs and cooking videos, to running nutrient analyses for SNAP-Ed participant dietary recalls, and so much more.
I really love working in the Community Nutrition Lab because there's such a supportive environment between all of the graduate students. We also get to work really closely with the professionals on the SNAP-Ed team to create content. And then I also really love the opportunities to go out and engage with the community.
I really love working in our lab because I love the Athens community, and to be able to go out and conduct my research in a real life environment where my findings could have impacts on real people in a meaningful way. I just love that opportunity. Thanks for learning a little more about our Community Nutrition Lab here at UGA. If you're passionate about community nutrition, maybe our lab's for you. Bye!
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Emma Lang and I'm the director of the Dietetics program here at the University of Georgia. Part of my role is assisting graduate students or post-baccalaureate students who already have a bachelor's degree in obtaining the dietetics coursework needed to then issue a verification statement from UGA. So this verification statement allows you to then apply to internships or supervised practice programs as the next step toward becoming a registered dietitian. So if you have an interest in pursuing becoming an RD as part of your future career, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help, and I welcome any questions that you might have about this process. I really appreciate your interest in our program.
Okay, great. That's the end of the faculty presentation.